come on in.
Yeah.
I'm Rhea. I am Adam.
Nice to meet you.
Let's go ahead and have a seat. Feel free to make yourself comfortable. All right. How's your day going?
It's going pretty good. How about you?
It's going well. Do you have any trouble finding the place or anything else?
No, actually, I put the directions on my phone, so it was pretty easy.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad you weren't like walking around in the parking lot, totally like wondering where I was. So.
Yeah.
Great. Well, first off, I'd just like to thank you very much for sharing your time with me today and allowing us to do this interview.
Yeah, no problem.
So we are going to be recording the interview. So there is confidentiality at work here. So even though we're going to be recording it, anything I ask during the interview, you can feel free to not respond if you don't feel comfortable. And if at any time you just, in general, would like to stop the interview, feel free to let me know. You're free to respond however you'd like, and just kind of feel free to just talk away. I really want to hear your story, so that's what this is about.
Okay.
And this whole interview is actually for my general social work practice class. So we're mostly here to just kind of focus on my approach and skills as an interviewer at this point. So just kind of feel free to answer freely and let me know, how you think I'm doing at any point, and just kind of keep me posted, okay?
Okay, sounds great.
So any other questions or comments before we get started?
I don't think so.
No? Okay, great. So, well, today I wanted to talk to you about your decision to pursue social work at UT. And I'd really, like I mentioned, I just want to hear your story. I'm very curious. So let's start off, like, why social work? Why not any other field?
Okay, that's a good question. So when I was growing up, my parents were missionaries, and so we traveled in Latin America, and so I was always exposed to the idea of helping, and it's something that was really important to me. I actually didn't find out about social work until high school, and when it was time for my freshman year in high school, my brother got leukemia, and so we actually moved here because Dell's here in Austin, the hospital, has one of the best leukemia programs in the world. So I don't know if you knew that, but we came, we came and settled down here, and we loved Austin. So through the 4-year process that we went through the leukemia, we met a lot of social workers, and I fell in love with their job. I felt like it was such a beautiful profession to come in and meet a family during some of the hardest times in their lives and just do your part to try to make that bad situation just a little bit better. And so that was my first exposure to the career, and like I said, it was my freshman year in high school, so I started looking into it because I wanted to have that element of helping, but at the same time I wanted to be able to settle down. I did not want to do the whole missionary move around thing that my parents did, and so I started learning more about it, and I fell in love with it. So I actually chose my college to see like which one had a social work program.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow. Well, I have to say, like, that's just kind of an amazing story. I mean, it sounds like you come from a really unique background, and just everything with your brother, and it must have been very tough, I imagine.
Yeah, it was. My brother is definitely my hero, even though he's like 6 years younger than me. So yeah, it was definitely a tough time.
Great. So I'm curious, where are you from originally? Where's your family from originally?
I was born in Mexico, but I think I've spent like the most time in a country. It would be like Guatemala, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, so your time, in Guatemala and traveling kind of with your family, do you feel like that's kind of affected your decision in any way, outside of just, not wanting to travel around? I mean, do you feel like, because that seems like it would add a very unique perspective.
Yeah, definitely. So like I said, I was introduced to the idea of helping from an early age, but I think that, and I feel a little bit bad saying it, but the whole moving around and putting other people before yourself from an early age, like my parents did that and took that decision for their life and kind of took that decision for my brother and I's life. My brother and I's life.
You got it.
Yeah, thanks. And so whenever I was choosing a career, I wanted to have the element of helping, but I wanted to settle down and kind of like detach from people. So I wanted to help, but at the same time, like I wanted to step back and be like, okay, I've done my part, and now, I'm gonna move away and just good luck, and I hope everything turns out. But I didn't like the element of constantly being there and seeing their never-ending struggle. Like I really wanted to get away from that. I know it sounds kind of mean, but
Well, no, I
Yeah.
mean, that was your experience and your action. I
Yeah.
appreciate your honesty about that. So, going back to kind of your experience with your brother and the social workers, were there like any just like key social workers or kind of a certain experiences that maybe you would feel comfortable sharing about that those were kind of the ones that really stand out for you?
Mm-hmm. So we met several social workers throughout the 4 years, and there were like some financial social workers and just some social workers that come in and just check in on how like your family's doing,
Mm-hmm.
like just emotionally through the whole process. And we had not stayed in a country for so long, and so that was one thing that we were kind of like in a cultural shock. And another one was that we've lived in different countries, but they always seem to be in Latin America.
Mm-hmm.
We were a small percentage of the time in Africa, but never in like not a third world country, let's just say. So that was tough. And so I had a social worker, her name was Shelly, that she was very sweet, and she actually made it a point to check in on me a lot, which was a little bit unusual because they usually, go to your parents and your brother, and you're just kind of like the one person that's just there.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought she was really nice, and she just really made sure that I was coping with the situation okay, and it really like stood out to me. That
Yeah.
she took the time to do that.
No, that's amazing. It sounds like she was, really concerned, and yeah, I guess that's one of the great things about
Mm-hmm.
social work is building those relationships, right?
Yeah, I think the fact that she seemed like she really cared and she was very like genuine, just it made the difference. I think so.
Yeah,
I
that
wanted
sounds
to be like her.
yeah, well, no, she sounds like she provided a great role model. Sounds like she was a heck of a social worker. So, so just kind of moving on from there. So now that you've decided you want to do social work, I mean, do you feel like at this point you have like a focus or a certain area of social work you want to really kind of pursue?
I'm not sure. I'm actually considering going to law school
Mm-hmm.
because I know I touched on the subject that I wanted to be detached, and I've come to realize that social work is still not detached enough for me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like still it takes a person that is really strong in order to be there. Like the populations that I've dealt with are like the homeless population or people with special needs, and it's again this idea of like a never-ending struggle that you just like you think they're doing great, and a lot of times they are, and they get out of their situation, but a lot of times they just keep coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like there's no part where your work ends and it's like okay goodbye. It's like a never-ending struggle. And so I think law takes a farther approach, and it's like case by case, and after I'm done with your case, like I hope the best for you, I honestly do, but I need to step back because I need to be emotionally okay in order to continue helping. So
Yeah, well, I think that's it's perfectly understandable. If there's one thing I know from every social worker I've ever spoken to, it's that separating those two is one of the main challenges, and taking care of yourself is definitely one of the biggest challenges of being a social worker. So great. So let's see. So I guess kind of in terms of like where the future is kind of like heading for you. So you're still kind of torn between this decision between maybe law school instead of social work.
mm-hmm. And actually I think social work, like I don't consider it like I'm not going in the right path. I think social work is so broad and so amazing that it can help you with any career really that you're going to. And I think even in law I will probably do some kind of like social justice
Mm-hmm.
or like family law or something like that. So I think a lot of the social work skills will still contribute to my work a lot.
So what was it about like kind of law that drew you to that? I mean, was there any certain experiences that kind of made you say like, hey, like maybe this is the way that I can kind of stay a little bit more distant?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually didn't know that social work was a great jumping point if you wanted to do like social law and stuff like that, which I mean, it sounds pretty obvious whenever you say it out loud, but I never put the connection there. And so one of my friends is a philosophy major, and she asked me to go to law kind of rally thing.
Mm-hmm.
The law school was kind of introducing their programs and what majors, undergrad majors contributed to law. And so I found out the connection, and I learned a little bit more about it, and I felt like it could be a great option for me. So I'm still considering like how that would all work.
Well, it sounds like no matter, which way you go, you're still going to be kind of wanting to help people in a certain way. Maybe that is kind of, I imagine that'll probably be part of what you want to do no matter what field you decide to take. So let's see, how has your experience at UT been so far? So with the social work program?
I love it. So after I graduated from high school, I actually took a year off because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I went to Spain and I took some online classes. And so that's where I took like my first intro to social work, and it was really broad. And so when I chose UT, I figured that the classes were going to be really big and really broad, and I wasn't going to get like a really connection to it. And so I loved that the class, that even though UT is really big, the social work classes are small, and so it helped me adapt coming from like a very different background. So I love it. I like it.
That's great. Have you feel like have there been any like kind of standout like teachers or experiences or anything so far?
In my intro, whenever I was doing my first like service learning activities for the volunteer hours, I worked with the homeless population, and I was very mean, I guess, to a certain degree. And so my professor actually, I wrote a paper about my experience, and I'm sure that like, my mean attitude came out a little bit on the paper. And so she took me out and she like was talking to me about the assignment. And I was like, oh, like I was, sharing my process through it. And she was telling me like, you're actually being really judgmental right now. And so it was like, it kind of made me like step back and be like, wow, I really am. And so I thought it was really good of her to like set me aside and like tell me that my approach wasn't the best one.
I have to ask, I mean, what does the word mean?
Okay,
imply?
so I had an incident with a woman that she was complaining about the food or something that I was serving her, and the work that I've done in other countries, like people are really poor, like the definition of poor, like they don't have absolutely anything. And so when I came here and I had people that were homeless people that had signs that had funny stuff, like it was very shocking to me. And like this experience with this woman that was complaining about the food that I was giving her, even though she doesn't have a place to even stay, it was like a different language. Like I just didn't understand it. And so my attitude was very negative towards her. And at the time I didn't think I was being negative. I just felt like she didn't have the right type of need that I was used to. And I understand how that sounds really horrible, but I mean, I didn't think anything of it. I was like, she doesn't deserve to be here. And, my professor was like, I don't think you realize what you're doing. Like, I don't think you realize that you're basically telling her she's not the right type of homeless for you. And so it's like, the fact that she pointed that out to me, like, I really appreciated it. And I was like, wow, like, that's true. Like, what I'm doing is really, really horrible.
Yeah, well, that sounds kind of amazing, actually. I mean, the fact that you were able to gain that insight that, that, yeah, like, not only how you were viewing the homeless population, but, that there could be these different, ways of different types of homeless people or something, it just takes different forms in different parts of the world that you're in.
Yeah.
So one last question, Maria, and again, I want to thank you so much for being so open and honest and letting me hear your story. How has your family responded to you pursuing social work?
Oh, that is a loaded question. So even though my parents help out a lot, I don't know if you know this, but in a lot of third world countries, they don't have social work as a career. It's just kind of like, you choose another career and you incorporate it with helping. And so both of my parents are architects, and they go around building like hospitals or nutrition centers and stuff like that. And so when I told them I wanted to be a social worker, they were like, what is that? Like, and I'm like, oh, it's like, you learn how to help people and all this stuff, you learn about different populations. And they didn't really understand, but I feel like I'm very different from my parents. So I'm like, I want to settle down, they want to move, I want to do social work. They don't think that's a career. And so they were just like, oh, that's Maria, like she chooses weird stuff all the time. So they just kind of like accepted it and moved on. So
well, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, Maria, I think we're about out of time. So again, thank you so much for talking with me today, and I really appreciate it.
No problem.
Thanks.